All right, guys, by taking a look at the screen in front of you, you can see what is going to be going down today. We're going to be playing a little keep, trade, cut. Initially, I wanted to do a rest of season rankings videos, looking at my initial positional rankings and seeing what players rose and fell based on what we know through the first 5 games of the season. But I thought by going through the keep, trade, cut website, it would be putting a fun little twist on things, looking at 3 players that pop up that people view similarly based on the market data and how I view their prospects rest of season. Also, it'll kind of bring in a little bit of cross-positional rankings. And also, I don't know what's going to be popping up. As they always say, go with your gut reaction. So you'll get my first instinct and gut reaction today on this episode. So as always, like the video, comment down below if there's any particular 3-player rankings that you feel strongly about. Subscribe to the channel if you are new here. And as always, we'll go ahead and cue that intro. Welcome back into Twin Takes Fantasy Football. Today we're playing Keep, Trade, Cut, ranking 3 players that are popped up based on the website you see in front of me and how I think their rest of season prospects will look, who I'd be looking to target, who I'm looking to fade going forward. You can take this and apply it to Dynasty or Redraft. I'll try to include my rankings for each one and tidbits when it comes to each particular format you're playing in. Just a couple updates for the channel. I will be traveling for a week and a half, so yes, I understand this is kind of low-hanging fruit content, but I had to put out a video before I left on the plane later today. So this is going to be a little bit easier for me to produce and at least get you something out for content this week. Next week, there will not be a long-form video. I will not be able to have my equipment set up, and we'll be skipping the long-form video that you normally are accustomed to seeing on Tuesday next week. However, the week after that, when I am back, I've already started working on that video. It's going to be an absolute banger. That's going to be a very large video that is going to be a lot of process and time in the making. So I hope you guys really enjoy that. It's something to look forward to 2 weeks from now. I will be continuing to produce out the shorts that you're accustomed to on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday as we kind of prep our start-sit decisions for the Thursday night game and into the Sunday games. So they'll just be a little bit lower quality. I'll probably just be doing selfie-facing videos on my phone. So you will not have the quality that you're used to usually, but I will still be getting you out those shorts this week and next. So without further ado, let's jump into the game we're going to play because it's going to be Keep, Trade, Cut. Currently, I have it on, the settings I have it on is Superflex, half PPR, 12 team. We'll go through some Superflex rankings and then we'll jump into some one quarterback rankings as well. I'll give you a little taste of both. But let's look at these guys. This is, again, if names pop up that really aren't relevant for redraft, and especially or not relevant for Dynasty and especially not relevant for redraft, we will go ahead and just, we'll skip them. No need to talk about them. Both in redraft and Dynasty, I'm keeping Dalton Schultz. He just got a nice contract from the Houston Texans. The passing offense with CJ Stroud obviously has grown quite a bit in the first few weeks, faster than really anyone has expected. And I think he's going to be a great beneficiary of CJ Stroud's acclimation to the NFL. Curtis Samuel, I see him being very much weaned out of this offense even as early as this year. I think with how the Commanders have been progressing, there might be some radical changes at the quarterback position after this year, after the coaching staff after this year. So yeah, I'm cutting Curtis Samuel. And then Calvin Austin, I'm not really excited about his prospects going forward. George Pickens is going to be the clear one. They might go ahead and draft another wide receiver in this coming year's draft, given how deep the wide receiver class is. So Calvin Austin, great gadget guy, but I don't really find him fantasy relevant, but a little bit more than Curtis Samuel just because, he is younger. So I'll give him that benefit there. And let's submit. And it's nice. It tells me how wrong I was down here. And apparently I'm very, very wrong. It says compared to the consensus, I'm very different, but I think I gave pretty logical reasons. So I'm not really that worried about it. I mean, this is dumb. I want to keep all of them. But I mean, as long as rest of season prospects, you have your dual threat quarterback. You have the guy that's the stalwart, the greatest quarterback in the NFL currently. And then you have the rookie. I don't really care. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. Do we take into account the absolute abysmal play of Dak Prescott on Sunday night? Yeah, I think we have to. I don't know right now it's going to be a crucial decision point in the Cowboys' future. They've invested a lot into go all in this season, and there's games in which there's 3 out of the first 5 games in which they've looked absolutely dominant. They're absolutely Super Bowl contenders, but then when they face teams that are a little bit, I forgot the Cardinals are a bottom dwelling team, but there's other games where they come in and they just look absolutely horrific, that they can't move the ball. And Dak throwing 3 interceptions, that was something that was wildly, even against a defense as good as the San Francisco 49ers, Dak's decision-making was on par with General Custer. So at this point, rest of season, I want Christian Kirk. Trevor Lawrence came back in, looked great. Looks like he's finally kind of regaining some of that form he had at the end of 2022 season. Again, we talked about how beneficial and how great I think the passing offense is with CJ Stroud and the rest of the Houston Texans taking that leap forward more quickly than we ever anticipated. And I'm going to cut Dak Prescott just because I think it's a massive quarterback class coming in next year. There's a lot more quarterbacks that are ranked higher than him right now. Sam Howell is currently putting up better fantasy stats than Dak Prescott. So yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. Oh God. Can I just cut all of these? 30 years old, not really interested. J.K. Dobbins after his ACL injury, the Achilles injury, not someone I'm really... I honestly, unfortunately for the guy, I feel for him because he's a great person and seems like a great guy in general. But just with how 2 very close, devastating leg injuries and the fact that his rookie contract ends this year, he may never take another snap in the NFL ever again. Mostly because if he were to sign a contract this offseason, it would be with a team that was willing to have him in rehab for this first coming season. And so they have to sign him to a contract expecting him to play not in 2024, but in 2025. So I think JK, his time in the NFL is unfortunately over. Tyler Higbee, and we'll keep this because who knows? Maybe you find a Tank Dell in next year's draft with how deep that wide receiver draft is. This is a good one. I like this a lot. Obviously right now, if we're looking at redraft, I think redraft versus dynasty, this one's a very particular, interesting one to talk about because obviously I want Evan Ingram in redraft. This is a guy that is productive, tied to Trevor Lawrence, tied to the best offense of the 3 of these players. So far in the 2023 season. So Evan Ingram would be in redraft. I'm keeping Evan Ingram. Cole Kmet, he's looked great the past 2 games. Obviously, he had that major breakout game where he had 2 touchdowns. But this Bears offense is so volatile. We do not know what the future holds, and we don't know what's going to happen to this offense. Will it regress when they actually face competent defenses? We don't know if Matt Eberflus will be the coach next year. We don't know if Justin Fields will be the quarterback come next year. Yes, he just signed a massive contract, but just the volatility in his play gives me a little bit of pause. So I'm going to trade him. And then for redraft specifically, I'm cutting Jonathan Mingo. Just we've seen Bryce Young struggle to adapt to the NFL game, the game speed, the game script, all that other stuff. The offense in Carolina has been one of the bottom 5 in offensive efficiency. So I can't really buy into a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 in that current offense, especially with Bryce Young still looks like he has a lot left to develop. So specifically for redraft, this is how I would do it. If you wanted to go into dynasty, I think they're all pretty, it's pick your flavor. Are you a wide receiver guy? Then yeah, maybe you can have the bet on Mingo becoming a relevant asset. Maybe you take the bet on, despite, cleaning house next season with the Bears front office and moving on to a different quarterback, maybe Cole Kmet, maybe they get the first overall pick and they draft Marvin and they draft Caleb Williams, and then Cole Kmet becomes a top tier tight end asset. Then he would definitely be a keep. But I think for dynasty, the unknown is quite that. So we'll leave this for redraft, and that's when it's going to go on. All right, we just skipped a little bit because we went through quite this series of irrelevant fantasy players. I'm not a guy that wants to scrape the bottom of the barrel. I'm not going to give you these deep sleeper picks, most of which 99% of will be irrelevant in a year and a half. So we are back with a more intriguing one. And this is something I actually wanted to talk about a little bit. Yes, 2026 mid-first round could be very, very valuable. But right now, sitting in 2023, that means nothing. I'm not really interested in assets that I'm going to have to wait for 3 years to see any return on value. First off, you know what's going to happen in 3 years. the average lifespan of dynasty leagues is going to be, it's about 2.5 to 3 years. So who even knows if your league will be together in 3 years, first off. Secondly, you can always get those picks back. And again, it's just, for my thought process, it's just way too far in the future to have any relevant value. There are a lot of players that even I would be willing to sell a 2026 first on, because it's just so far in the future, it's basically relevant to me. So I'm absolutely cutting the 2026 first. We don't know what the draft class is going to look like. There's so many variables with these rookie classes that are going to happen. You don't know if it's going to be a strong class. You don't know if it's going to be a weak class. Look back at the most recent 2022 class. We thought we were going to have some high-end quarterbacks in Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell going 1 and 2 overall. Well, Sam Howell ended up being a 5th-round pick, and Spencer Rattler is still in college after he transferred after being overtaken by Caleb Williams in the Oklahoma offense. So we just don't know. There's so much volatility in the college football landscape that's going to happen. I can't even assign a potential player to this pick. Not interested whatsoever. James Cook and Michael Pittman, you'll have each particular people have their own particular flavors around these guys. Myself personally, I'm a big ascriber to the fact that wide receivers are much more valuable in both a redraft and dynasty than running backs. Just it's the way the nature of the game is going. It's becoming a more pass-heavy game. And the funny thing is, we're comparing these two players who both have two of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the NFL. But the thing is, with James Cook, we just don't see a history of production from the running back position when it comes to the Buffalo Bills. Over the past 3 years, in 2020, 2021, and 2022, the Bills running backs as a whole have ranked 30th in fantasy points, 31st in fantasy points, and then back to 30th in fantasy points. They're just not players that are really going to give you that high-end ceiling upside, because the true running back one in this offense is Josh Allen. So I'm going to trade James Cook, and I'm going to buy into the potential of a wide receiver just with the way the game is going. It's becoming more pass focused. I am a Shane Steichen believer. Potential bias here, but I'm definitely a Shane Steichen believer, and I think he's going to do great things with Anthony Richardson as long as he can stay healthy. And Michael Pittman is the true alpha wide receiver in that offense. So I'll go with that. Anyone? I just want to check this. Okay, good. I'm glad the consensus agrees with me there, because anyone who would be ranking a 2026 first over that is just stupid. It's absolutely ridiculous. Don't know any of these people. Well, I do. I just don't care. Don't care. All right, let's talk this one. Brandon Ayuk, 2025 early first rounder, Jahmyr Gibbs. Even 2025 early first rounder. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what injuries are going to befall players. You don't know. This is why Devy leagues are so intense. It's just because you draft players coming into college, and one year they're relevant, 1 year they're off the face of the map. Kayshon Boutte was a first-round pick going into last season, and then he comes out and he's a 6th-round pick, almost went undrafted. You just don't know how these players are going to develop. 2024 firsts are the only firsts that I'm really, really interested in trading for right now, unless you are absolutely horrific. If you're the bottom of the barrel, horrifically over 300 points behind the rest of your league, in last place, dead last, can't do anything, then maybe you start to accumulate 2025 draft capital because you are that bad. But if you even have a modicum of relevance of fantasy football players, it's still a little bit early to start accumulating 2025 picks en masse. So at this point, with talented players like Brandon Ayuk and Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm still going to sell the 2025 early first. I understand it could be the next Justin Jefferson, it could be the next Jamar Chase, it could be the next Josh Allen, but we have time. There's also the aspect of we have a whole other season. You could potentially be trading Brandon Ayuk and Jahmyr Gibbs next season for a 2025 first plus. It's just the production they're going to provide to you now is way more valuable than waiting essentially 2 years to reap the benefit of a trade. Jahmyr Gibbs versus Brandon Ayuk. Again, you can follow a very similar talking track to what I spoke about with Michael Pittman versus James Cook. I think the interesting factors here is that Brandon Ayuk, he's still on his rookie contract. We don't know if the 49ers are going to retain him, but we've seen this year, he's a guy that I have to admit that I was wrong on. I was not really in on the breakout of Brandon Ayuk, but he's completely proven me wrong. He's become a vital part of this offense, really ascended as a true alpha wide receiver next to Deebo Samuel. I mean, it's really threatening defenses having to guard both of those players, and I think he has the potential to go to another team and be the true alpha wide receiver. But Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, I know we haven't seen it so far this season, but he is incredibly talented. You saw the investment that the Detroit Lions made in him, taking him with the 12th overall pick. Yes, it does take some time for rookies to get acclimated to NFL game speed, to the NFL offensive systems. The NFL game, as much as you want to say, yes, he came from a very high caliber college with Alabama, and they do run a very NFL style pro ready system. It's still just a major transition going from college to NFL. So I'm not out on Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not saying he's a bust. I'm just saying it's going to take time for him to develop in this offense. And if he becomes a guy similar to an Alvin Kamara, then obviously he is going to have a ton of value. But right now, just based on the longevity of wide receivers and their relevance for Dynasty, Jahmyr Gibbs, at this point with Brandon Ayuk being 25 and Jahmyr Gibbs being 21, they both have about 4 to 5 years left, I think, of prime fantasy relevance. Also, we're looking at these two guys as Brandon Ayuk, who is a top contributor right now, with Jahmyr Gibbs currently outside the top 24 running backs, and we don't know when he's actually going to ascend to being a fantasy relevant asset. I put a lot of stock in assets that are ready to contribute to your team right now. So I like the value of Ayuk, and I'll be trading Jahmyr Gibbs. I can't wait to see how wrong I am on this. Let's scroll down. Wow, I'm actually kind of shocked. I guess my logic was pretty sound. I mean, we can already tell, I've already talked about this ad nauseum. 2026 first, way too far out for me to even consider in a trade right now. It's basically peanuts. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with waiting for an asset to return value in 3 years. It's ridiculous at this point. So this becomes, do you believe in the current production of Calvin Ridley or the breakout of Jackson Smith and Jigba? Listen, Jackson Smith and Jigba has had a really rough start to the season, but we also have to factor in that he has had a broken hand. He did suffer an injury in preseason. He already has competing with a lot of high-end talent in that offense with Tyler Lockett, with DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. He's not going to be an immediate contributor right away to this offense. I think he's still very, very young. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba, for Dynasty, I'm taking Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's a guy that I believe in the talent. I mean, you have guys like Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson saying out of the wide receiver room in Ohio State, JSN was the best wide receiver. So I think, again, he's a rookie. It's only been 5 games. Let's not throw the jury out just yet. For Dynasty, I'm absolutely keeping Jackson Smith and Jigba and trading Calvin Ridley. If it's in redraft, I'm keeping Calvin Ridley and trading Jackson Smith and Jigba. I don't really care about waiting for him to break out, hopefully later on in the season. But yeah, for Dynasty, JSN all day, every day over Calvin. Irrelevant. Huh. Interesting. This is a good one. I'm going to get exposed here. I'm really going to get exposed here because as much as I love to crap on the tight end position and say it's really irrelevant for fantasy football, let's take a look at this. We're going to take a look at this strictly in a redraft sense. Justin Jefferson is going on IR with a hamstring injury. TJ Hawkinson's value has shot through the freaking roof. And and he is way more consistent of a quarterback than DJ Moore has with Justin Fields. So, yeah. TJ Hawkinson, I absolutely want to be in on his current next 4 games. Could be record-setting from a tight end pace. I think DJ Moore is coming off of a 49-point game in half PPR, over 50 points in PPR. The dude went nuts. 3 touchdowns, 230 yards. Obviously, he's incredibly talented, but that was against a pretty abysmal Washington Commanders secondary. That's not going to be every single game. We've seen the struggles of Justin Fields early on when he's had to take on competent opponents. And yes, he does have a quite easy strength of schedule the rest of the way. The volatility of DJ Moore does scare me a little bit. He's going to win you weeks, but he's also going to lose you weeks. He's going to have those 1 point, 2 point, 3 point weeks where he has like 1 of 3 for 13 yards. It's not going to be pretty. So I'm going to trade him. And then with Kyler Murray, again, I put stake in value that can return now. We don't know when he's going to return. Yes, Josh Dobbs has been great. He's put them in a position to, not be 0-4, 0-5 at this point. They actually have won a couple games. The team looks feisty. They want to fight for Jonathan Gannon. I just think, with Kyler Murray's knee injury, despite him being ahead of pace, we're going to keep him even in the super flex. I'm gonna lower him below DJ Moore just for this season. In Dynasty, I would love Kyler Murray. I think he's going to be great. He would be number 1 to keep in Dynasty. But for redraft, when I'm talking about this season, I wanted to highlight TJ Hawkinson, who's going to be on an elite tear for the next 4 weeks. All right, so let's get rid of Superflex. We're going to be shifting our focus towards one quarterback. And for the sake of this video, we're going to completely only talk about redraft. Did not anticipate how confusing it would be trying to jump back and forth between Dynasty and redraft, so I apologize about that, but we're going to focus primarily on redraft here. All right, went through another stretch of very irrelevant players that was really no sense diving into, especially for the redraft-centered folks. But I like these few players. This is interesting. You're going to talk about production now versus expected production that's not materializing versus a rookie that has a potential breakout based off of an absence in his team in Quentin Johnston. So right now, all 3 of these players are definitely, you want them on your team. I would be surprised if any of these 3 guys is on your waiver wire, but only one of these guys is in your starting lineup right this very moment. So that's Isaiah Pacheco. So automatically he gets to keep, just because he's a guy that is a bona fide starter week in and week out. You don't take him out of your lineup as long as he's healthy and part of the Kansas City offense. Now, which of these players do we think is going to bounce, or which of these players do you think is going to have more relevance rest of the season for fantasy? You have a guy that's done it, that's showed immense talent, that was expected to be a high-end wide receiver coming into the season, but this has been abysmal. His quarterback hasn't really targeted him. He just hasn't had that offensive efficiency and has, I think, a putrid route run rate or yards per route run rate of like 0.6. Yeah, it's awful for Jahan Dotson. And then for Quentin Johnston, all the talent is there. People are projecting him, or I guess not projecting, but they're hoping that he has a season-long trajectory of an Amon-Ra St. Brown, gets acclimated to the offense, and then really hammers it home when he becomes one of the primary passing game options, obviously tied to a good quarterback, but really when it comes down to the crunch time of fantasy football, which is the latter half of the season and playoffs. But you still have Keenan Allen. Joshua Palmer is still there. Austin Eckler is going to be healthy and still a factor. So for my money, the person that I think has a smaller, but in my opinion, more likely chance to be relevant towards the latter half of the season is going to be Jahan Dotson. So I'm trading Jahan Dotson and I'm going to cut Quentin Johnston. And that's what I'm going to do. Interesting. So this is not a super flex. This is for one quarterback. And let's just take a look. Ramondre Stevenson, a guy drafted in the 3rd round. Jahan Dotson, a guy drafted with in the 6th round ADP in redraft. And CJ Stroud, a guy who's been absolutely undrafted. But these are guys that aren't even in your starting lineups. So, I mean, the same way, yes, you got the name value of Ramondre Stevenson. You got the name value of Jahan Dotson. But when it comes to people who are actually going to be in your starting lineup, I think at this point, you'll see people benching Ramondre. I have Jahan Dotson on my team. I haven't started him a single game this season. But guess what? If I need a quarterback, I'm totally fine putting CJ Stroud in my starting lineup. So yeah, it's wild. But if you think about it logically, it's like, who's going to be in my starting lineup? Who would I feel comfortable starting on a week-to-week basis? Maybe even matchup agnostic. CJ Stroud is that guy. And then after this, listen, what team is actually putting up points? It's the Washington Commanders. What team do I think is going to, they have a competent offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy, the Washington Commanders, who has a quarterback that's not looking like he might not be thrown to the Wolves after the season. Sam Howell might be thrown to the Wolves, but he certainly looks better than Mac Jones right now. Things are just so dysfunctional in New England. I don't want to touch Ramondre. I don't want to touch Mac Jones. I don't want to touch anything associated with the Patriots at this moment. So I will trade Jahan Dotson and I will cut Ramondre Stevenson, which is wild because this is a complete inverse of their ADP draft values from this past offseason. All right. I severely underestimated how often this app was going to give me, or this website was going to give me players that just really weren't relevant for our current fantasy landscape. So I had to skip through like 15 different things where they're talking about players like Paris Campbell and Donovan Peoples-Jones. Not really the hot button topics of fantasy at the current moment. But these guys, this is going to be a hot button one because we have Miles Sanders and Najee Harris, guys that were drafted in the 4th and 5th round or so and have just been they've been busts. Let's just say it how it is. They've been busts so far this season. But do you put the positional value of a running back over Luke Musgraves? This one's hard. It's really hard. Listen, I'm going to follow the money. Miles Sanders got a big contract this offseason, the largest contract of any running back in free agency. Listen, I know historically offenses helmed by rookie quarterbacks generally don't tend to produce for fantasy, or the running backs don't tend to produce for fantasy in those offenses, but Bryce Young's a smart quarterback. He will figure it out. I have confidence he will figure it out. I have confidence his offensive line will get healthier, will get better, and at some point, Miles Sanders will give you some big weeks. So I'm going to keep Miles Sanders. So bad. He is so freaking bad. I don't know what it is. It looks like he put on weight in the offseason. He looks like he's lost all explosivity. He's not shedding tackles the way he was as a rookie. This offensive line is horrific. Kenny Pickett is the farthest thing from a competent game manager. I mean, honestly, even in redraft, if you can trade Najee Harris for, like Fab, I would probably do it at this point. But honestly, if you need to pick up, like right now, given the current state with the Arizona Cardinals losing James Conner with that ankle injury to IR for 4 weeks, Amari DeMarcado, I think I'm saying that name right. I would drop Najee for him. I would. I really would. Najee's a drop candidate for me. He's just bad. And then that leaves Luke Musgraves as the obvious trade candidate. Christian Kirk, Amari Cooper, Jameson Williams. Well, only one of these guys is a wide receiver 1. Despite the maybe inefficient play of Deshaun Watson thus far this season for the Cleveland Browns, Amari Cooper, still a wide receiver 1, has still shown that he's going to get it done through the air, and despite being 29 years old, still wildly effective for fantasy. Elijah Moore isn't coming in and stealing much. David Bell hasn't come in and taken much. Cedric Tillman really hasn't usurped any of his target share. Amari Cooper is the closest thing you're going to get to a true solo wide receiver target in an offense. Christian Kirk, while he is second fiddle to Calvin Ridley, he's still productive and he's still tied to an offense that's going to pass the ball quite a bit. We have a little bit of faith after the London game against the Buffalo Bills that Trevor Lawrence is an elite quarterback. The second half of 2022 was not just a mirage of 4 or 5 games. And I think, he can actually put up a very reasonable stat line next to Calvin Ridley. And Jameson Williams, I got to cut. The dude is talented. He was one of my favorite wide receivers coming out in the 2022 draft class. But there are so many things that, primarily off the field issues, that really give me concern. And just the way that Dan Campbell and the rest of this coaching staff talks about Jameson Williams. It seems like they have concerns with his maturity. It seems like they have concerns with his decision making. It seems like they've gone out and tried to acquire other offensive weapons, so they don't really have to rely on Jameson Williams and kind of, letting him be an auxiliary piece to this offense. They have Jahmyr Gibbs. They have David Montgomery as the primary running back. Amon-Ra is going to be the wide receiver 1 no matter what. He's the image of consistency when it comes to just a PPR machine. Amon-Ra is going to be the next Keenan Allen, mark my words. I just don't see him really. He's in the doghouse currently with the coaching staff. He was injured with an ACL and missed most of last season and missed most of this season so far with gambling suspension. Clearly, they have some issues with his mental fortitude, and I just don't know how much to trust him as a wide receiver. I can't really buy into him at this point. Stephon Diggs, man. Even in Dynasty, the dude is just, he gets it done. Every year, people are calling for the fall of Stephon Diggs. He's almost 30 years old. But this dude, he's tied to the Buffalo Bills offense. He has been a wide receiver 2, then 7, then 4 in the past 3 years. He is what you want in a wide receiver 1 for your team, whether it's dynasty or redraft. I cannot keep Stephon Diggs. The man is just unbelievable at football. He just signed a new 4-year contract last year. He'll be around for a couple more years, even in Dynasty. Don't let the age scare you. The dude's a champ. I love Stephon Diggs. He was my first round pick in a lot of Dynasty or a lot of redraft leagues this year, just because he is that good and he showed it on the field so far this season. Travis Etienne. There was a lot of concern with Tank Bigsby coming into this offense. However, Doug Peterson, for as much as he loves the running back by committee, has shown that he is really shown a lot of fortitude in Travis Etienne as the primary workhorse in this offense, and he has been incredible for fantasy football thus far. So right now, if we're in Dynasty, I'm going to lean into the upside of Devonta Smith and longevity as a wide receiver. But for redraft, I'm going to trade Travis Etienne, and I'm cutting Devonta Smith. The dude's talented, just the inconsistency playing alongside Dallas Goedert, playing alongside Jalen Hurts, playing alongside A.J. Brown. It's not going to be there every week for him. These guys, I think they're going to be, you can count on them not to ever lose you a week. This one's hard. I'm going to rely quite a bit on my preseason rankings for this one. Jalen Hurts, he was my quarterback 1 in the preseason. I think his dual threat ability is just insane. You have the Chico that is the tush push or the brotherly shove. I mean, I think he's basically a week winner. If you have him on your team, you never have to worry about the quarterback position, and he has gone out and proven that he can win weeks from you at the quarterback position. Right now, I think I am in a single quarterback league going to value the positional value of the running back position, and Bijan Robinson. I mean, curses. I lay curses on Arthur Smith and the Atlanta Falcons coaching staff because they don't use their weapons properly. They don't use Kyle Pitts. They don't use Drake London. And clearly they are ineffectively using the immense talent that is Bijan Robinson. This man was out there doing and one mixtape moves, trying to on a behind the back pass to a potential like fake crossover run to the end zone. Yeah. He's talented, super talented, limited by his current pea brain, smooth brain head coach. And I'm cutting Patrick Mahomes, but he's still the best quarterback for real life NFL. For the rest of the season, normally it would be Aaron Jones, but the injury scares me. He's been injured for essentially all but the first game. Even when he came back in week 4, he was severely limited in the snap count. Didn't seem like he was fully back. And, especially with these older running backs, those hamstring injuries, they tend to linger. I mean, just doesn't take much to look at what Keenan Allen went through last season, missing 11 games with the hamstring. I think this is going to be a long-lasting impact on Aaron Jones. Alvin Kamara came back from serving a suspension. Derek Carr loves him. Just insane number of targets, just a PPR monster. You have Chris Olave, but I think Alvin Kamara currently is the number 1 weapon in that current offense. So I'm keeping Alvin Kamara. I'm trading Roschon Johnson. I'm cutting Aaron Jones because I honestly don't know if he plays more than 3 games the rest of the season. Roschon Johnson, I still believe in the breakout ability next to and overtaking Khalil Herbert. If Aaron Jones is healthy, this will look a lot different, but I just don't believe Aaron Jones will be healthy the rest of the season. This is pretty easy. Even with the Devon A-Chain ascension, Raheem Mostert's still going to be getting a lot of workload on the offense. And also, we just saw Devon A-Chain suffer a knee injury. Looks like he's going to be out for a few weeks. So, despite a couple of down weeks for Raheem Mostert, he is back. He's going to be back as the lead back in this Miami Dolphins offense, which we can, I think, arguably say at this point, one of the greatest offenses we've ever seen grace an NFL field. They have had the most passing yardage and the most points through 5 weeks of any team in NFL history. So yes, I don't think it's an exaggeration to call them the best offense that we've ever seen grace in the NFL field. And the lead back for that, yes, please. Jake Ferguson, good tight end, probably has seen some utilization, has some touchdown upside. Not going to be a great game breaker. Not going to be a huge PPR monster. Not utilized in the same way that Sam Laporta has been. But I think he's okay. I think if you want to slot him in and you're expecting 8 points from your tight end position, Fergie will get you that. Trading him. Michael Mayer just completely unutilized in this Las Vegas Raiders offense. As a rookie, he should be quite irrelevant as a tight end. So yeah, I'll be cutting him. Okay. I think this one should be pretty straightforward. Cooper Kupp came back despite the concerns around the hamstring. Comes in, 12 targets, 8 yards, over 100 yards. 8 targets, 12 targets, 8 catches, over 100 yards. Matt Stafford still continues to absolutely feed Cooper Kupp the ball, just force feed it to him. He's still an elite level wide receiver. He's going to be a wide receiver 1, probably a top 3 wide receiver over the rest of the season. Who wouldn't want Cooper Kupp if you survived the first 4 weeks? Calvin Ridley, I'm going to trade him. And Justin Fields, just a guy that I don't know. He's volatile. He looks good, but those were against 2 really poor defenses. Against a better defense, not sure if he's going to be able to put it together. I don't like the volatility of the Bears offense right now. There's already rumors of the Bears replacing him with Caleb Williams or another high-end draft pick if they can't turn it around. So I'm kind of out on Justin Fields the rest of the season. It was great for what you got utilization for right now, but yeah, see if you can move off of him where his value. This might be the highest his value is for the rest of his NFL career. Yeah, and I think that's a sign to stop the video where it is. Guys I don't really want to talk about in Tyler Boyd, Darnell Mooney, KJ Osborne, guys that you probably aren't going to play unless you're absolutely desperate. And if I was going to play one of these guys in desperation, it's KJ. And that's going to wrap up the video for today. I will be traveling sometime this week, so maybe those shorts don't come out as early as you normally expect them on this channel. And again, they will be a much lesser quality, but I still will be getting out my start sit decisions, the guys that I think are ones you should pay attention to and a lot of people might have questions around. Again, no video next Tuesday, no long form content. I apologize for not being able to get that out, but I won't have my current setup. However, look forward to the following Tuesday where we will have a very big episode that's 3 weeks in the making. Been doing a lot of research for it, so that one should be an absolute fun one, even if you don't like fantasy football. It should cover a lot more broader topics. So that'll be fun, something to look forward to. If you have any comments about the rankings I've gone through today, always feel free to drop down in the comments below. Would love to debate some players, their rest of season rankings, and what you think their potential outlook could be. But as always, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and until next time, take care.